Former Wellington councillor Ann Elborn spent nearly 30 years in mental health, but in her final years of practice, she found herself increasingly alarmed by the counselling profession's embrace of gender ideology. When she raised concerns on the New Zealand Association of Councils Facebook page, citing evidence-based critiques like the Cass Review, her posts were removed and labelled harmful. She was accused of transphobia and warned not to share debate-provoking material. Her experience deepened after taking NZAC-endorsed training run by Inside Out, which promotes gender-affirming care as the only valid approach. Questions about regret rates, puberty blockers or underlying issues like trauma were dismissed or shut down. Elborn saw it as a clear message: alternative views won't be tolerated. She later discovered at least 20 councillors quietly agreed with her, but none felt safe speaking publicly. Now retired, Anne is breaking that silence. She believes the profession is being censored by ideology and that clients, not just councillors, are paying the price. And Ann Elborn joins me now. Anne, a very good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, Leah. Great to be here on the show.
I'm very, very pleased and happy that I was introduced to you through an email that came my way, and I was so happy to be able to get this out there with you. Can you just take us back first, Anne, when you first started to feel uneasy about the direction of your profession when taking on gender issues? What sparked that concern?
Well, it wasn't until I put up my first post on the New Zealand Association of Councillors Facebook page. That's a page that has over 1,900 members, so it's quite a forum for councillors to share ideas and raise issues in a very healthy, helpful way. I came to the realisation, or some realisations about gender ideology, not actually through my profession. That's a bit of a story, but once I had once I was a bit piqued, I started reading about what was going on in the profession. And quite naively, I thought, well, if I put some of the stuff, some of the what we know, the evidence we had at the time back in 2021, if I put this on the Facebook page, people will go, oh, great, that's really interesting. Let's discuss it and mull around ideas. This is the usual way with forums within the counselling profession. We might have disagreements, but we have respectful discussions. But it didn't go that way at all, and I was pretty shocked.
Can you share with us, what the response was, just some off the top of your head?
Well, initially I started by writing to the executive about my concerns, and I didn't hear back. And at that point I wasn't a member of the Facebook page, but a colleague suggested I join, and why didn't I post the letter? So I posted the letter, and that was just before Christmas of 2020, and it didn't get much response. I guess people were doing Christmas at that stage. So in 2021, I put up some information, and there was a pile on, and it was unexpected and really rather unpleasant. And I'm a person who's normally quite comfortable speaking up, and I was a bit surprised by the impact it had on me. So, yeah.
Well, I wanted to ask you that. You were labelled as harmful or transphobic. How did that affect you, and personally and also professionally at the time?
Well, I laid pretty low. By then I was starting to only work part-time. I was going into retirement. But what it did, it was a huge deterrent to posting again. And I don't think it was just a deterrent to me. I think it was a deterrent to other people on that Facebook page. You had to be pretty brave to post anything that was contentious, particularly around the gender issue. I do have a few brave colleagues though, and they would, sometimes comment on posts or even put up their own posts. But it's very worrying from that point of view, because it stops people asking questions or saying, expressing concern about gender affirming care.
It's interesting because, and why I look forward to speaking with you is in a previous job with another company, I mentioned on my show that only women can have children and that you had
Yes.
to have a uterus. And I was turned on by my company as like you were, and and runs very similar with your story to my story. And
Mm.
it's I won't go this is your story, but you mentioned that counselors told you, about 20 counselors told you that they were too scared to speak out. I had managers
Mm.
of my company quietly walking past me when I was at my locker or at my desk going, I agree with you, I really secretly, but
Yeah.
I can't say anything. And I know how that made me feel because
Yeah.
I was hung out to dry and I knew people agreed with me and I was speaking the truth. And I
Yeah.
can only imagine that's how you felt.
And I suspect it's not just you saying it's my story and your story, but I suspect it's quite a number of people's story that
Yeah.
they say something, that they try and raise concerns, and it's not the arguments that are shut down. It's the person.
Yes.
Like the first post people really commented on, I got two opinions are abusive. Look, it is unfortunate when other people can't speak up, but I completely get it. I've
Oh,
been
yeah.
in the position to speak up because I am retiring. I've been fully retired now nearly 3 years.
Mm.
I've maintained up till very recently my membership of the association. Even
Okay.
now, it's not super easy to speak up, but it's possible.
Yeah.
I don't face any backlash or threats.
No. And can we look at then what happened too? Because if we go back a little bit in that time, you later took part in a gender training session that was run by Inside Out. What stood out for
That's
you during that session?
Yes, that's correct. That was, I think, September 2023. It was a series of 3 webinars.
Right.
Look, one of the first things that stood out on the webinar is it was introduced by somebody from NZAC, and she made a comment with words to the effect that if there were any inappropriate behaviour, that people would be moved off the webinar.
Oh.
Now, I've attended a, a huge number of workshops, trainings,
Yes, I'm sure you did.
conferences. I've
Yes.
never, that's never been said to me before, nor have
Yeah.
any counsellors or therapists behaved inappropriately. So that really stood out to me. And
Yeah.
then that was backed out by the two Inside Out presenters who said we welcome curiosity, but any attempt to question our identities this isn't the forum for it. So
Oh.
again, unusual. Usually, people giving a presentation welcome questions, even the ones where people rave on for a bit and don't actually ask a question. It's all part of it.
Yeah. So, and you must have realised quite quickly during this session that questioning or any alternate view was unwelcome, and so you abided. You didn't ask any questions that you probably
I
might
was
have
there to
wanted to.
listen.
Yeah.
I wanted to find out what was being taught, and I was
Mm.
there to listen. A couple of people, one asked a question about transition regret, and somebody else asked a question about why are so many young people now identifying as trans.
A good
Um,
question.
this, yeah, I mean, the other thing that really stood out to me is how after going through a few terms, for example, intersex, what intersex means, um, so, same-sex attraction means, they launched right into transitioning, and the first thing they discussed was medical transition.
Mm.
So, and I just, this was supposedly rainbow training. I think the word lesbian was only used once in the
Wow.
whole webinar.
Right.
There's very little about working with people who are gay or might be wondering if they're gay.
Mm.
It was all about transitioning, starting with medical transition.
You mean like puberty
Um,
blockers and further?
Puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones, how to access them, and what I thought was a really quite a cavalier attitude to these drugs. Like at one point, one of the speakers said, if you're on cross-sex hormones and you want to get pregnant, you could go off them and then you can jump back on them. That was
Oh,
actually their words. So,
wow.
yeah. So, I mean, it was really worrying. Um, I was busy doing some other gender critical activities at those stages, so but I still had my eye on what was happening on in NZAC. But it really didn't feel like an environment where you could question gender affirming care.
It's what is so for you to, to say that they did not want to discuss, like you said, talking about why so many young people are wanting to be trans. They just want to
Mm,
go straight to transitioning and how to do it, and it's
yeah.
you're not to
Well,
discuss maybe you're gay, maybe you're a lesbian, or let's talk about
mm,
those things. No, hang on, you yep you're trans. Let's just go straight to
well,
puberty blockers.